Hey everybody, today we're making Angel LCM bars. You can see my finished products here. I've chopped them into some little slice pieces, but you can make them into like regular muesli bars and you'll get 8 muesli bars out of each slice. Drizzle some chocolate over the top because life is better with chocolate, hey? And we've just used dark chocolate. So let's get cooking.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read over the ingredients. Now, in French cooking, there is a term called mise en place. And what that means is to put things in order. You'll see that I've got all of my ingredients on this side of my workbench and I've got my equipment on the other side. Now, you will find a way that works for you. It doesn't have to be the same as mine, but you'll find that it's much easier if you've got all of your ingredients and all of your equipment together, and that way you won't have to be wondering where the salt is because you'll know it's with the rest of the ingredients. Now, what we do is we'll read through the ingredients. We're not worried about volumes at this stage. All we're doing here is checking off that we've got the ingredient on the workbench, and that means you won't be running around like a loose cannon or a crazy person going to get an ingredient and missing out on a step. So I'm going to read through the ingredients and you'll see that I'll just point to mine to double check that I've got the ingredient. All right, it's very relaxed, and because there's only a few of us in the class, that just means that you can ask a question at any stage. You can use the chat facility if you want to, or you can just unmute because there's not loads of us. So it's a nice interactive class. Wonderful. The first thing that you're going to need is some rice bubbles. So I've got my rice bubbles there. Then you'll need some desiccated coconut. I've got that there. You'll need some pumpkin seeds. Now, if you don't like a particular ingredient, so like not everybody likes pumpkin seeds, you can swap it out for other things. So I like pumpkin seeds, but I don't like sunflower seeds. So we've swapped it out with something else. And when you make it again, you can try all sorts of different ingredients. So that's my pumpkin seeds here. As I said, I don't have sunflower seeds, but I have got some cashews, and you could use all sorts. You could use sunflower, sesame seeds, or you could use almonds or hazelnuts, whatever. Then you've got some chopped chips here. Great. I've got some honey here. Some tahini here. If you don't like tahini, not everyone likes tahini. It's quite an interesting flavour. Next time you make it, you could swap it out for some almond paste or some peanut butter, and that will do the same thing. You could even swap it out for some Nutella. If you're trying to be healthy, probably not Nutella, but it will do the same thing. Great. Some tahini and some vanilla extract as well, or vanilla essence, vanilla extract, vanilla paste, whatever type you've got. Hey, Mateo, how you doing? Great. We're just reading through the ingredients, so you haven't missed anything. Wonderful. And you'll need some salt as well. So I've got a little bit of salt. Fantastic. Now, equipment. You'll need some measuring cups and measuring spoons. And I just use my little Kmart ones because I think they're the best ones I've ever found. You'll need a baking pan. So I've just literally got, a square sort of sliced tin like that. You can use any kind. You can use round, you can use square, you can use rectangle. You'll need some baking paper. I've got my baking paper there. You'll need a small saucepan. Got my small saucepan there. You'll need a bowl. Now, I'll be honest, all of my washing up stuff is in my dishwasher. So I've got a mega bowl, but you won't need it to be, you don't need it to be that mega. But everything else is dirty in my house because every person in my family is cooking at the moment. So a large bowl, you'll need a wooden spoon or like a silicone spoon spatula, and you'll need a knife. Fantastic. I've got a pair of scissors. The reason I've got scissors is just to snip open my rice bubble pack. Fantastic. All right then. So I'm popping my recipe up so that it's upright in front of me, just checking, make sure no one else is waiting in the waiting room. All right. So the first thing that we do when we cook is we do all the prep work before we get to the food bit. So the recipe says, step 1, preheat your oven to 180 degrees. If you've got a fan-forced oven, do it to 175. So if you've got a regular oven, 180. If you've got some super duper oven, do it to 175. The next thing that we're going to do is line our baking tray. Now, there is all sorts of fancy ways that you can line your baking tray. I am going to give my tray just a quick little spray of oil, just a little one. And the only reason I'm doing it is to make my baking paper stick. So just a little bit of spray. Fantastic. Excellent. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I've got my baking paper on top of my pan, and I'm going to push in, and I'm going to push into the corners, pushing into the corners. And when I do that and bring it out again, you'll be able to see the 4 corners as little indentations on your baking paper. I'm just getting my scissors. If you want to just tear it, you can tear it, but I'm snipping from the side of the paper to each corner. It's not anything, there's no fanciness here. If you want to be fancy, you can be very, you can create 2 little slits at each corner, but we're trying to keep it nice and simple. So I've just, I call this my angel. It looks like a little angel or a sea anemone or whatever it's called. So I've snipped from the side on all 4 corners into the little indentation in my baking paper. And then once I've done that, I just push it into my pan, and I fold the paper flat so that I should get a nice straight line on each side of the pan. So that it's sitting just nicely. And when our mixture goes into our baking paper, it's going to push the sides out and hold it nice and securely. So just take your time doing that. There's no rush at all. Some of the guys that have been with me regularly have seen that the other way that you can do it, that I learned on MasterChef last year, was to crumple up the paper and then uncrumple it and sort of push it up against the sides. But I find that sometimes it doesn't give a very straight line. So on this one, we're making a nice straight line. Once you've done that with your baking paper in your tin, just put it to the side. So fantastic. You guys are ready? Brilliant. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to measure 1 1/3 cups of rice bubbles. So we're going to do 1 cup of rice bubbles first. 1 cup of rice bubbles. If you've got a larger jug with multiple measurements on the side, like my jug here that's got multiple measures on the side, you can just go ahead and measure 1 1/3. If you've got individual cups like that, you're going to find the 1/3 measure, 1/3, and the 1 cup. Now, we definitely want a flat or a level measure on our measuring cup. So when I measure, you'll see in my overhead camera that I never measure over the bowl. So I'm never trying to maneuver all of this and accidentally spill some. I let the table hold my cup, and then I'm going to just pour. I'm pouring my rice bubbles in, and I'm going to give it a little tap on the bottom, And then when I do that, that settles down. And when I hold it up, you can see that it's a nice level measure, and you put it straight in. So you might see on recipes, it will say spooned and leveled. And spoon just means that you've spooned, it usually is with regards to flour, and that you've measured it in, you haven't sort of dug into the flour container. So so 1 cup and then 1/3 cup. And then if I accidentally spill any of my rice bubbles on my board or my bench, it so doesn't matter because I've measured the right amount. And you can always put those little extra guys either back into the container, or just, in my case, I'm putting them in there because there was only 5 little rice bubbles. So 1 and 1/3. All right, then the next thing that we're going to measure is 1/3 of a cup of desiccated coconut. So we're getting the 1/3 cup measure again. So I'm always doing it at the side. Oops, a daisy. And I'm going to measure 1/3 of a cup of desiccated coconut. Again, I'm tapping it on the bottom so it's nice and sits level. And we want a level measure of desiccated coconut. Got a little lump there. And then popping that straight into our bowl. And then once you've done 1/3 of a cup of coconut, we're going to measure out 1/3 of a cup of pumpkin seeds, if you're using the pumpkin seeds. Again, nice and level. Then once you've done your pumpkin seeds, you're going to measure out 1/3 of a cup of sunflower seeds, or if you're using something else instead, use whatever you've replaced it with. So I'm just using cashews. The good thing about this recipe is you can use all seeds, you can use things that you like, or your family likes. So 1/3 of a cup of sunflower seeds or your replacement. Perfect. All right, so we're up to our sunflower seeds. Then 1/3 of a cup of chopped chips. 1/3 of a cup of chopped chips. If you're using them, you could replace them with carob nibs if you like them. I'm not a big fan. And then pop that straight on top. Ooh, looking good. 1/3 of a cup of chocolate chips. I've got kind of big melty things, not the big size ones, but everything in this recipe, all the ingredients are interchangeable to make it work for you. You can, if you wanted to add some dried apricots or some dried apple, you could replace the currants with some dried fruit, fruit that you like. You could put some dried mango in, all sorts of options. Some cranberries I thought would be nice as well. All right, so it's 1/3 of a cup of dark chocolate chips or whatever kind of chocolate chips you want. The darker the chocolate, the less sugar that it has. And then you're going to put 1/3 of a cup of raisins or something else that you're going to swap. So I've just got the very end of a daggy bag of raisins that I don't even know how long I've had it for, so I thought it was a good opportunity. Right. So it's 1/3 of a cup of raisins and then 1/3 of a cup of currants, or sultanas or cranberries or whatever else you've got. My sultanas are so dried out in their little bag that they are almost begging to be used. And then once you've added your last ingredients there, once you've done your raisins and currants or whatever you're doing, then I just want you to use your spatula and start mixing everything together. I'm just going to mix it all up. And you might have, if you're like me, you've got some little coconut lumps in there. Let's just break those up. Just take 30 seconds to do that. Beautiful. So once you've popped your big bowl aside, grab your saucepan. Fantastic. And then we're going to measure 1/3 of a cup of honey. The thing that, if you don't love honey, you can swap it for rice malt syrup. So rice malt syrup is another runny, sort of syrupy ingredient, very similar to honey, but it doesn't have that honey taste. So a lot of people use that instead of. And you're going to measure out, so you're going to pour your honey. So measure out 1/3 of a cup. So take your time to do that, because honey just takes forever to get out unless you, yeah, that's it. Oh my gosh, my top came off. Oh, my lid came off, not my top came off. Goodness. Oops, I've got honey everywhere. All right. Once you've measured your honey out, and that's one of the reasons why I don't do it over the bowl, we're going to pour it straight into your saucepan, and you'll need to get all of that sticky honey out of your measuring cup by using a spatula. Or a spoon or something. Spatula is always easier because it's a little bit bendable. And we're going to pour that straight into our saucepan. And then once you have measured out your honey into the saucepan, we're going to pop it on the stove and heat it until it's really runny. So it probably won't take very long, maybe 2 minutes at the max. Just put it onto a medium heat, and then you're going to turn it down to a low heat. We don't want our honey to boil. We just want it to get nice and runny. So I'm going to pop mine on while you guys do that. You don't need to move your device at all because this won't take long. It's probably just 2 minutes. We're going to measure. Oh, sorry, we're not going to measure. We're going to heat our honey on a medium heat, but watch your heat. You probably need to turn it down a little bit. We don't want our honey to boil. We just want it to go nice and runny. And when you come back, and I'm not rushing this bit, but I know some of you are already finished, you're going to put in half a cup of tahini. Half a cup of tahini. If your tahini has separated, try to get a little bit of the liquid and a little bit of the solid bit. Tahini tends to settle. Half a cup. So just be really careful of your saucepan because it's warm or hot. And you might need to dig it out, depending how old your tahini is. Not old, but as in like how long it's been settled there. Great. It's a little bit tricky to get out. Sometimes it's beautiful and smooth, and other times it is not. Great. And then once you've measured half a cup of tahini, you can put that into your honey. I'm just getting mine out. And start mixing it together. My goodness. So I'm putting my tahini into my saucepan. And I'm just carefully mixing that around. So it might take a little while to get incorporated. Mine is quite solid, but the hot honey will help it melt. Melt? No, it's not melting, but it's just to incorporate the both. I'm using the back of my spoon to break my, or to press down on my tahini. Again, you could have used almond paste or peanut butter instead of the tahini. It's a really good binder or a mixer, like it binds things together, causes them to mix together well. Great. How's Marius going there, Mum? Fantastic. I think I've got the lumpiest tahini ever. It's worth taking the time to do this so that your mixture is nice and smooth. Otherwise, you'll get a big lump of tahini in your LCM bars. Mine now looks like peanut butter. Anyone else's? Nice, smooth peanut butter. Mine. Great. All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. Great. All right. Once you've got that together, I want you to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. 1 teaspoon. Great. Make sure you have a smell of it because we love the smell of, oh, yum. Sophie, you've got paste. So nice. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and salt. I would use, we'll use 1/4 teaspoon of salt. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Definitely don't measure your salt over the top. And the salt is to bring out the flavour of everything. And then once you've done that, yeah, mix it around. Yes.
How many cracks do you do if you have a salt grinder?
4. Do 4. Yep.
How many grams of salt do you need?
I'm using 1/4 teaspoon. So have you got 1/4 teaspoon, or have you got a grinder like Sophie?
We have a normal teaspoon.
We have a normal teaspoon.
Oh, okay, fantastic. It doesn't really matter if you put too much in. So we're trying to go with 1/4 teaspoon, but Mum will help you. You don't want 1/2 teaspoon. You just want, if you're just using a regular kitchen teaspoon. Does that make sense? Not half, under half. Great. And then we'll mix all of that together. All right, fantastic. All right, so we're step 4, add to the mixing bowl. Oh, we're about to do that. Add to the mixing bowl with the tahini, vanilla, and salt. And then step 5, add the remaining ingredients and mix to combine. All right, so I'm now getting my bowl back. And this is going to be a little bit of hard work, but we're going to pour our mixture into our wet mixture into the dry mixture. Use your spatula to get it all out. You want to use as much of that liquid as possible. So scrape your spatula all the way around the edge of your saucepan to get as much of the wet mixture out as possible, and then it's literally Operation Mix. So this will take a little while to get everything mixed together. So I'm putting my spatula I'm squashing it, breaking up the pieces, and after a while they'll come together in a nice ball, but keep breaking up your pieces so that it picks up all of the ingredients. Take your time to do it. Oh, bit of a workout. I've just wet my hand, and I'm using my hand to push the mixture together. We want it to be coming together in a nice lump. So I'm having to break up some of the sticky lumps to pick up the rest of the dry ingredients. Right. When it's together in a lump, you can then put it straight into your container. And don't worry, just put all of the bits, even if there's some loose bits, into your tin. Pour it into the tin. Now I'm going to start by using my spatula. But the recipe says use slightly damp hands to press the mixture firmly into the prepared tin. All right. So I've got my hands wet, and then I'm pressing my mixture all the way around the sides. And if there's any little hundreds and thousands chopped bits, I'm sort of scattering them evenly on top. So I'm really pressing into the sides. Beautiful. And nice, firm, even. We don't want it to be like the Sahara Desert. We want it to be nice, flat, plain. And you can move your little chopped chips. I don't know about you, but my chopped chips are sort of floating on the top a little bit. They're a bit loose. Right. Oh, so yummy. Right. Now, you can pop it into the oven when you're done for, the recipe says 10 to 12 minutes. So you'll know that I will always, you put the timer on for 10 minutes, look at it after 10 minutes, and if it's baking too dark, well, obviously you're going to pull it out. But if it looks like, oh, yeah, it could go another 2 minutes, then that's fine and dandy. Leave it for the 12 minutes. So I'm going to pop mine into the oven. Fantastic. Oh, look at you. Excellent. Love it. Great. Now, the recipe says, we always love the recipe. The recipe says bake for 10 to 12 minutes until golden. Then it says remove from the oven and leave in the tin to cool. Leave in the tin to cool. Once it's cool, place it in the fridge for an hour prior to cutting. So when you cut it, and you'll need a responsible adult to cut it, and you want a nice big knife with a straight edge, of which I can't find one of mine right this minute, to be able to cut it up. My suggestion is if you want to be a bit fancy, you could melt some more of your chopped chips, and just with a metal spoon, you could drizzle the top of your LCM bars with some drizzles of chocolate before you put it into the fridge. So if you want to do that, and Liam, I love it. So you won't need a lot because you're not covering the whole base. So you probably need maybe a quarter of a cup of chopped chips, quarter of a cup of chopped chips, and then pop them in the microwave, do 20 seconds, give them a stir around, and then if they need more, do another 20 seconds, and then you can just drizzle. Then you can just drizzle the top of your LCM bars after they've cooled down and before you've put them into the fridge. And then the recipe says leave them in the fridge for an hour, and then you can cut them into whatever shape you want, whether you want them into the traditional LCM bars or if you want to do them in little squares, you can do that as well. Fantastic, and that's it. Great. All right, guys, I'll see you next time.